Ryan Goodman and Tanguay podcast is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
This heavy-hearted episode of the Bob Ryan. We need some organ music.
Yeah, organ music would be good.
With Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, Tanguay, Along for the Ride podcast is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. FanDuel, NBA Finals, which the Celtics are not going to be in, I don't think. Make a fast break to FanDuel. They get you covered right now. New customers can get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. FanDuel. Okay. So, fellas, this is the day after the Celtics' embarrassing surrender of Game 3 in Miami. And I'm just going to open up the floor to Bob Ryan and let you start, Bob.
I thought they were going to win. I did not think they would give us such a miserable performance. And I don't have an explanation. I mean, a week ago, we're celebrating, hey, they showed us a lot. Look at the way they rose up against Philly. Look at the game that Tatum played. He answered a lot of questions. I actually said that. I believed it. This is a setback of monumental proportions. I mean, this is and I continue to say it's inexplicable. It's about the head and the chest, what's inside the chest. It's not about the raw talent. Now, I agree they didn't shoot well, but you know what? A team is, if a team is really worthy, and this is not just true of historically of the Boston Celtics. It's true of any team that aspires to to great consequence. You have to learn how to win on nights when you're not shooting well, and you got to be tough, and you got to. I mean, I can cite chapter and verse to some of those birdier teams. Like a Milwaukee game, I'll never forget a Game 7 against Milwaukee. They won that game because they won the offensive boards. Period. That's why they won the game. And they beat the Lakers once upon a time that way in '84. This team never wins a game like that, do they? Do they, Jeff? Do they, Gary? Did they ever win a game like that? Did they win? They win grind out games? No, they win coasting games. And then they. So this is sadly, folks. This is who they are. They're proving unworthy, and I'm very disappointed. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, listen, to me, I didn't know if they were going to win Game 3, but I thought they'd compete.
Yeah,
I thought they'd come out and play hard because, again, the proverbial backs against the wall. Had to win this one. You win it, you got momentum. Now it's a series, and instead to get blown out this way was a complete embarrassment. And again, I kind of get tired of watching these guys post game, and you guys know my affinity for Jayson Tatum. But I want more shit to him. I want more passion. I know that's not him, but the problem is he doesn't have that and nobody else has it around him. It would be fine if he was surrounded by some dudes that had some MFer in them. Well, that's not the case. This whole team is made of cool. Like Jalen Brown should be that. He's not that. He's been worse. As much as you want to criticize Jayson Tatum, and he hasn't been good when it mattered in the fourth quarter in this series, Jaylen Brown's been terrible from 1 to 4. Like, he's been terrible the whole game of this series. Can't shoot, again, can't dribble, kind of reverted back. So when you have your top two players that don't have a lot of fire and aren't getting it done, you're not going to. And Jimmy Butler is an MFer. He is, period.
But he wasn't the story last night.
But he's always the story because you know what? Even when he's not scoring, he's playing with intensity. He's getting his guys going. He trusts his players. I mean, Gabe Vincent was, I know he was a story last night. The story was the supporting cast. You're right. But Jimmy Butler's always a part of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, they had to pay attention to him. They did double him and actually had a moments of effectiveness doing so, which they didn't sustain. So you're right. I understand. You're right about that. He does. Smart. We kind of, if you would have, where's he in that regard? Because he's got spunk, to say the least.
He's just not good enough. He's not good enough.
Oh, he's not Jimmy Butler. No.
Marcus Smart is ideally, your fourth or fifth best player. Like, actually, ideally, Marcus Smart's a hell of a first guard coming off the bench. That for a championship team, that's what I want Marcus Smart to be. Is your first guard off the bench, but you're relying on him. And again, the problem with Marcus Smart is you just never know what you're going to get.
Well, what I've noticed with Marcus, and we'll start with him because they just quit last night. So we have to break down the situation and kind of analyze what's going on because something went wrong. Okay. There's something wrong with the recipe. Okay. In the locker room, somewhere along the way, something didn't jive. And I think you've got a couple of camps, Jeff. And this is my opinion as an observer. It seems to be Tatum and Smart, and in Mazzulla, then it seems to be Brown and everybody else, as far as I'm concerned. Because for whatever reason,
I don't think Smart's with Mazzulla. I think, listen, Smart was with Ime. So I think it's Tatum and Mazzulla because I think Jayson wanted Mazzulla. And I think you got Smart probably more with Jaylen Brown that maybe didn't want.
Why is Smart on the floor at crunch time as opposed to the other two guards who have played better?
Because Joe's scared of Smart. Joe's scared, and he's the veteran.
Right,
and he does bring toughness. He does bring an intensity that you need because you don't get it from anywhere else.
But he can't score in the clutch. I mean, what we've seen, Jeff, from Smart, what was it, game 2? He had 10 assists, and I think he shot once in the first half, and then the second half he started to shoot all the – in the fourth quarter, if Marcus did – it's obvious that the defense wants Marcus Smart to shoot in the fourth quarter. And that's what has happened. We saw it against Philadelphia. We saw it against Miami. We saw Tatum absolutely spit the bit in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, help me out here, guys. Why? Bob and I were talking about it before we went on the air. Jaylen Brown and Mark, we've seen the numbers. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, when they both score over 20 or over 30, they're like 33-1. It's some crazy number. Why can't that happen in games like this, Jeff? Does Marcus Smart get in the way? Does Jaylen Brown not like Jayson Tatum? It's a simple game. Why can't this two-headed monster do something against Miami?
What have I said for 3 years? It still looks like Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have never played basketball together.
I know.
I know it got good for a little while. For a little while, people were saying, no, you're wrong. Look at them. They're playing off one another. Again, they do not make life easier for one another at all. Like, at all. They don't. And part of it is Mazzulla. Again, you're not putting them in a two-man game. So I think there is some blame there. But ultimately, you're the two stars of this team. Work off one another. And I'm telling you, I would love to see the numbers of, again, I think it was a while ago, the numbers of how many times they pass to one another. It's so much lower than other, stars within the league, especially two wings that have the ball in their hands a ton to be able to pass, dribble, shoot.
I mean, let's get Bob's take on this because, Bob, you have seen in your career a number of dynamic duos or three players possibly. I mean, with the Celtics, I think of McHale and Bird. They're both Hall of Famers. One, the greatest low post player ever, arguably. He and Akeem probably. But like McHale and Bird got along fine. I mean, they weren't friends, but on the floor, they were great.
They have that total professional respect for each other in their games, and they each know that the other one enhanced each other. Larry's well aware that Kevin took up the hard defensive assignments, and that Kevin finished off his passes well. And Kevin, I remember the year that when Larry was hurt and had missed the whole season, remember, pretty much when in 70, 89. And when he came back, the first exhibition game was in Worcester, and Kevin was raving about having Larry back, that he got those entry passes he hadn't gotten in months, Okay, anyway, they weren't the greatest of friends off the court, but they weren't enemies. They just
and that's Tatum and Jaylen. I think they're similar in that regard. I think they're very different personalities. I've said this over and over, and people have taken it the wrong way. They're not guys who are hanging out left and right off the court, but they're friends. They're friends, but they're not like buddies. They're friends.
So I mean,
but Bob, what do you see, Bob?
I resisted. I have resisted this line of thought, and I know Jeff's advocated this forever, and I want to. I didn't want to buy into it, and I'm still. I'm. What am I going to say? It looks more and more. And here's what bothers me. I'm kind of expanding this a little bit. What bothers me about both of them, and I can't prove it, and I dislike, and I worry about this, is that they are both classic, AAU pups, and they are in this business about making first team, second team all league. And the idea that there's substantial money involved, which the media should have nothing to do with, unfortunately. Right. And this is terrible circumstances that we've evolved into. It was bad enough in the old days when you found out there was clauses if you made in baseball Cy Young, and you get and who votes for the Cy Young? The media, and that was bad enough. What we have in the NBA now is horrendous. Yes. I mean, whether it's criminal, it's awful. What I'm getting at, though, is I worry that these two guys are much more obsessed with making all league than worrying about winning ball games and making the content.
I would say this. I would, watching the Heat and the Celtics, I would say this. I watch the Heat and I look at all these dudes that were told they're not good enough, starting with Jimmy Butler, right? Yeah. Who had no offers.
It was the 30th pick of a draft.
Well, he had no offers coming out of high school. Zero. He had to go to junior college then go to Marquette. Nobody thought he was good enough. And that whole team, Gabe Vincent, I tweeted out, he was the 4th leading scorer as a senior at UC Santa Barbara. How about that? Fourth leading scorer on that team. We know Duncan Robinson's story, right? Like Max Strus started.
Max Strus at Lou. Honest to God, I've been around college sports now 70 years, literally, okay? And I've heard of a lot of obscure schools, but Lewis was not one of them.
Yes.
I had never heard of Lewis. I knew it until 2 weeks ago when I started looking into okay, tell me about Max. I don't even remember that the Celtics had him. I know that he was the last guy. I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, so go ahead.
The Celtics are the opposite. Opposite. Tatum's been told how good he is by people like me since he was 14. Jaylen Brown was a top player back early in high school because he was so much bigger, stronger, athletic than everybody else. And again, you just got a bunch of dudes on this team that have been, and really the main two have been, their asses have been kissed for a long time, and they just don't play with that fire that Miami plays with overall.
No, they're front runners. I mean, this team is, and Bob has pointed this out. Do the Celtics have the talent? But Bob has said, do they have the it? Do they have the intestinal fortitude? And they don't. They're soft.
They miss Ime. They miss Ime Udoka and how he held them accountable. Where, again, we talked about Brad Stevens. Didn't really do that, non-confrontational. I think Joe Mazzulla's not Brad. But again, how confrontational can he be? I mean, he went, second row Joe to now coaching. And it's hard for him. He's trying to keep the job. And the best way to keep the job, and he did, I guess, I don't know, we'll see if he keeps it, but he got a contract, was honestly pleasing the players. That's what Joe Mazzulla had to do. He knew that. And again, then you start losing a little bit, and the players don't have that same level of respect. If you win, it was Brad Stevens. When he took over as a college coach, you get crucified. All these college coaches failed. Well, Brad took over and did so well with a kind of a ragtag group that he got that equity. They believed him. They started to play for him. Okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Then the moment it goes wrong, which it did with Brad at the end, it was, he's a college coach. He can't, they lost their kind of it in him and their belief in him. And I don't know if they ever had it for Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah. Well, it's going to look back at if and when this ends this week. We're going to look back, and the date was September 21st. By the way, I remember it well because I know where I was when it came down on Ime, and we're going to look back and say, boy, that they never, in a sense, they didn't recover. If this is the case,
you know what the date was? You know what the real date was? February 16th, when they decided to give Mazzulla the full-time job. Because, again, I have a couple questions for you guys. I have two. I don't mean to hijack this.
No, Gary, go ahead.
I have two questions. I have one let's start with Mazzulla. And if you are Wick Grousbeck, what do you do with Mazzulla now? You've given him a contract. We don't know how much money it is, but most contracts in the NBA are fully guaranteed. Let's say you gave him another 3 years after this year, which is my guess, somewhere in that probably 3 year range at this point. I don't know what the dollar figure is, but it's significant. Certainly, it's not going to be cheap.
Sure, right? It's 7 figures at least, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
So it's at least $1 million, if not more.
Probably more. Probably $2 to $3 million is my guess.
Yeah,
what do you do?
To buy him out, it's probably going to take $10 million to buy him out, right? 10
Correct. I would assume that would be a figure that would, somewhere on the cheap end would be $7 million. On the high end would be $12 million. Somewhere in that range. What do you? It's not your money, obviously, but what do you do, Bob, with Mazzulla?
Well, what do you do? That's what Brad and management to decide. We don't know what they are thinking. We just don't know what they are thinking. And I mean, Brad's got a lot at stake. This is it was Brad put faith in this guy. I've been saying I'm not going to bail on Joe Mazzulla because I got too much respect for Brad Stevens. He's not stupid and he believed in this guy. But but I could be wrong. I mean, obviously, I can.
Is it time? Is it time to question why they didn't hire Damon Stoudemire?
Okay, we're going to get back to the conversation with the guys in a moment. But I have to tell you, you need to make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Great promotions every day. Download that app. It is so simple to use and it's secure, and you get paid instantly. So download it now. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, and Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Visit www.mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland or 1-877-8-HOPE New York or text, actually I should say, or HOPE NY or text HOPE NY at 467-369 in New York. 1-800-522-47 in Wyoming or visit www.1800gambler.net in West Virginia. And now let's get back to the show.
Who was an NBA player for years.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I'm glad you said that because why wasn't Stoudemire hired?
He was too close to Ime. That's why. I think that's the primary reason was he was an Ime guy, and after everything that happened, they felt like they couldn't promote Damon Stoudemire. But again, Damon had years in the league, so I think players ultimately immediately would have respected him and his decision making. Now, Damon's not an MFer either, but I think again he can get into guys because he had played in the league so long. It was a baffling, and again, I like Joe a lot as a guy. It was a baffling decision, except when you look at again how close that Damon Stoudemire was to Ime Udoka. Then you understand it a little bit.
That makes perfect sense to me. That would be the impediment to hiring him because he made good sense otherwise. I didn't answer your question. I hate questions. I mean, it's a fair question, but it just seems that. Well, I don't say it's going to ruin the guy, but it's going to taint the guy.
Would you cut the cord? I guess forget money. Take money out of the equation right now, which you can't do. But let's say, are you ready to say Joe Mazzulla is not the answer, Bob? And let's go after Monty Williams or Nick Nurse or something like that.
But here's the question, Bob. I'll ask it this way: how long are you willing? Okay, if Mazzulla stays, all right. Yeah. How long are you willing to give him to fix this? because this is.
Well, you have to give them next postseason. You have to. If you're going to bring them back, they're going to be good enough in the regular season like they were this year. Right. And ultimately, all that matters is the postseason. So you've almost, if you bring him back, unless he falls flat in his face, you almost got to give him next postseason, don't you?
I mean, can it be fixed, Bob? You've been around teams forever. It's obvious that they don't respect him and they're not listening. My opinion. I don't think he has any control over this team. Can that be fixed?
Well,
that's the tough part. I mean, nobody wants anybody to get fired.
No,
I get it. Quite frankly, if
I'll take $10 million to get fired. You want to give me $10 million not to work? I'm okay with that.
Here's the thing. I think there's always context. Everything in life is context. Everything, for the most part, right? Everything for the most part. Boy, is that a contradiction? Most things in life are in context, and I'll stand on that. Okay, context. And the context is there are great choices out there available to them right now. You mentioned those. That there are coaches that I would rather have than Joe Mazzulla. Absolutely, positively. And not including Doc, which put him on the. They're not bringing back Doc.
No.
Doc and Wick are not. Wick and Doc are not.
I would take Monty in a heartbeat. I would take Nick Nurse, and I would take Mike Budenholzer for this group. And I don't care what happened in Milwaukee and whether Giannis didn't like Budenholzer or whatever the hell. He's proven he knows how to do it. I would They
need somebody. They need somebody there that can almost show them a ring. These guys and say, look. I've won a ring. Listen to me. I mean, again, they listened to Ime the second half of the year. He figured him out. For the most part. Now, I know people were frustrated. They didn't win the NBA Finals, but what Ime did from turning it around and making them, I mean, we got to remember how bad they were.
Middle of January on, there was a whole different team. Different team. All
right, my other question.
Well, I haven't answered it yet.
All right, answer that one, then I got one more.
He's got to go. He's got to go because, and I appreciate Bob's compassion, and I'll tell you why. Because if you bring him back next year, it's just going to be worse. And the Celtics made a mistake in giving him the job because he just wasn't ready. And I'll tell you why I know he wasn't ready. Because whenever you put a kid like that and you put him in the media, and he was so defensive and he was so flip, he's insecure. Yeah. He was just insecure. I mean, let's face it.
Of course he was. And he should have been. He wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready, Jeff. He just wasn't ready. Yes. And I don't know if they thought because Tatum liked him and it's a players league and all that, he just wasn't. The kid wasn't ready. So 5 years, maybe.
No fault on him. No fault on him. That's the
really
fault.
Not his fault. And you're right, Jeff. It's really not Joe Mazzulla.
We're blaming him. He was the head coach of Fairmont State 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's not his fault.
Right.
It's not his fault. But you could just tell. I mean, he goes in acting like he's Bill Belichick in these press conferences. And I'm like, kid, you're scared. You're scared shitless. He was scared shitless.
He didn't know how to deal with it.
And then I heard, how about this one? I heard this. Well, I think it was on Felger and Maz, so who knows? Jaylen Brown went to Mazzulla and said, I want to take Harden. And then what? Or did you say that, Jeff? And then Mazzulla said, "Well, you got to talk to Marcus about that."
Yeah, I didn't. I was on the show when they said that, so I didn't. I don't know if who said, where that came from, but
that's right. Whatever. But I mean, but you kind of believe it. I mean, it's not crazy.
No.
So anyway,
my next big question. 5 years, $290 million. That is the contract that now Jaylen Brown can get from the Boston Celtics. Man, that scares the living shit out of me. Absolutely scares the crap out of me.
No.
I just listen to me.
No.
To me, I don't want to pay that money for Jalen.
No.
That's insane.
No.
Right.
And the idea that it's even a discussion and the reason why it is a discussion, it so frustrates and annoys me. That it's only because he made second team all league, and that's the way the system
is. It's stupid.
It should have nothing to do with anything. It's just unbelievable. I can't imagine how we got to that circumstance. Anyway, I'm with you. He is what he is, and to a point, he's an excellent basketball player, but he's not that level. No, absolutely no.
That's elite. That's a guy that you could say, if you're paying that money, he's our number one guy, and he can take over a game. Tatum has shown that. I know he's shown the opposite too, but Tatum with a killer next to him, and I don't know who that is. I honestly, I don't know who I'd trade Jaylen Brown for anymore. It wouldn't be Bradley Beal. It's flipped for me where I actually think, although for that money, maybe it would be Bradley Beal because I don't want to pay 5 years, $290. That again.
Who else does though? Who else does? Do you think anybody would pay him that?
I mean, some small market team might think he could be you got to overpay, and you'd have to. I guess I don't know what the rules are. If you could trade him. I don't know if you could sign him to that and then trade him right away. I don't know what those rules
Might be
are.
like a 90-day window or something. There.
Yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, that's the hard part is who's the right fit alongside Jayson Tatum now? You want a Jimmy Butler type. There aren't many Jimmy Butler types out there that are killers.
No.
Right? So, like, who? I mean, shit, in a year, can you draft Bronny James and then get LeBron to come along, a 40-year-old LeBron to come with Tatum? I don't know what it is. I just don't like the way Tatum and Jaylen Brown play with one another. I've never liked it. And now in the playoffs, I think they've reverted back. They were good for a little stretch together where I felt like they were learning. They were maybe taking some of the criticism, but now again, it's like, man, they look like they've never played ball together.
I'm going to give you guys a historical tidbit. As we know, no one has come back from 2003 in the NBA. The closest, though, is very interesting, in terms of how close it almost happened. A mere 72 years ago, the Knicks fell down 0-3 to the Rochester Royals. They won their next 3 games, and with 1 minute to go in Game 7, the score was tied. And they were on the losing end of a block charge quandary, and that Tricky Dick McGuire took a charge from Bobby Davies, and the referee gave the benefit of the doubt to Davies, who made the 2 free throws that won the championship.
Wow.
How about now? There was a bucket with 1 second to go, ceremonial after they dribbled out the clock. So it made a 4-point game, but it was really a 2-point game. And that's how it ended. That's how close the Knicks came to doing it. So there's hope.
No, there's not. Good job, Bob. Way to sell it, kid. All right, let's go to
the other guys.
Let's go to the other guys right now. And Bob, I'm going to let you go with Denver because you have loved this team from the beginning.
Well, I love them more and more and more, and I can't. Jamal Murray's playing.
They could be.
Jamal Murray's playing our world right now. He's Steph Curry. He's making Steph Curry shots. Right? He's making Steph Curry shots.
Yes.
And he's playing at that level, and God love him. There's nothing that I can add to the Jokic assessments. There's another great story in the New York Times today. Kurt Streeter is talking about how he plays at his pace. I'm always saying how, for those who remember what I'm talking about, he doesn't play at 33 1/3. He doesn't play at 78. He plays at 45 all the time, goes wherever he wants to go, does whatever he wants to do. Nobody can stop him from getting and doing what he wants to do. He has figured this thing out, and it's amazing. But they're getting, the help they need from other people like Michael Porter Jr. and when they need it and so forth. And they are, of course, very well coached by Mike Malone. I'm so happy, and I'm happy.
Worcester Academy guy.
And I was so fond of his father, who's a terrific guy, Brendan, one of my all-time favorite NBA people. Anyway, they are doing the opposite of the Boston Celtics. They're peaking at the right time.
Yeah,
and they're playing hard and smart. And
it's their star. You can count on their superstar. He's going to show up every single night. I know he hasn't been great at the end of games these last couple of games, but he hasn't needed to. He hasn't needed to as much. And they've surrounded him with shooters, right? Like Murray can shoot it. We know Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has really shot it well. Michael Porter Jr. can shoot it. The only guy that can is really Aaron Gordon, and he brings that kind of energy and toughness. And so their team is put together. They're constructed well. I thought the Celtics were constructed well with the addition of Brogdon and Derek White, but they're just missing. It's not like, again, I'll say this. It's not like Murray and Porter Jr. are MFers. They're really not. Like Porter definitely isn't.
Oh, no.
Murray, you might get the wrong idea. He's still kind of a mellow Canadian kid, right? Like that's what he is.
Yeah.
Now, Bruce Brown, I'll take Bruce Brown on my team any day of the week.
Yes. I tweeted this out that every team in the league would want a Bruce Brown. There's no team that would not. If he shows up at your doorstep, hey, come on in.
During the prime spring season, you need wholesome, convenient meals to energize you for warmer, more active days and keep you on track in reaching your goals. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and tackle everything on your to-do list. Too busy to cook in May? With Factor, skip the trip to the grocery store and skip the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Then get back outside and soak up the warm weather. Looking for calorie-conscious options ahead this summer? Try delicious, dietitian-approved calorie-smart meals with around or less 550 calories per serving. Factor is really amazing. This May, get Factor and enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh packed meals delivered right to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/scribe50 and use code scribe50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code scribe50 at factormeals.com/scribe50 to get 50% off your first box.
Oh yeah.
And Gordon is tough too. So you've got a couple tough dudes around Jokic who's tough as shit. So they've got enough that again, a Porter can have an off game, even a Murray can have an off game, and they can win because Jokic just makes everybody better consistently. Like he can do everything. It's funny. I had an argument with my nephews on a group chat because I said Tatum is the most complete player. I've said this over and over in the NBA in terms of complete in his skill set, not necessarily like whether he brings it every night, but his overall skill set. And they argue with me about Jokic. And obviously right now I'm kind of eating my words. But I just felt like Tatum can score in a much more effective way consistently than Jokic can. He's a better 3-point shooter. He can put it on the floor. He's a better defender. But Jokic has made me look stupid because he's been so dominant and so exceptional in every way.
Now, on the other side, what do we make of AD in this series?
Yeah, I mean, AD's always been a little bit of an enigma. He has because, again, the injuries, the questionable toughness that's always been questioned with Anthony Davis for the most part. It's how tough is he? And it's a tough matchup going against Jokic. It is. I mean, the dude is just like you said, he's so hard to guard. It's like, what do you do with him? Because he takes it up the court. He can grab it off the glass and go as kind of your point forward. And he moves much better than he doesn't look like a plotting big. And then he sees everything.
He's everything. And at 6'11" or whatever the hell he is, he's that's such an advantage. And he doesn't miss. And there's an open man. He finds them. No, they're fun. I mean, it's going to be. There's no way that they won't win. And good for the city. They're an ABA expatriate team that they've never won in the NBA. They've never been to the finals. They've had some teams. The Doug Moe teams were fun teams. Remember they were fun. Oh my God! With
Skywalker,
with Kiki and Alex English.
They could score.
Unforgotten. Oh my God! I remember a game in Boston. We had a 148-146 game, I believe it was, in Boston. With them.
Yeah, no surprise. Those dudes didn't play any D, but they could score.
So what do you think? Because it does look like a Denver-Miami matchup. Who do you like there, Bob?
Well, I'm going to root for Denver, and I think Denver ought to win, but Miami, they're playing great. They're playing great, and my question is, where was this all year? Why did they have to stumble into the playoffs and win play-in games?
Butler was hurt a bunch.
Yeah.
But they weren't completely healthy, but they're still not.
And the other thing, I'm giving them full credit. They're doing this without Tyler Hero, who you would have argued is their second best player.
Yeah. Bam's been really good. Bam has taken his game up a level. Remember last year in the series, he wasn't as assertive offensively.
How about that spin move? Oh my God, wasn't that beautiful?
Bam's the one guy on that team. It's funny that was highly recruited. Obviously went to Kentucky. He was drafted high, but he doesn't play like he's been given anything. That's the
no. He plays with an edge.
Yes, but always has. Love Bam Adebayo. Great kid. Here's my other question, Gary. Is this the last time we see LeBron James this deep in the NBA playoffs?
I don't think so. Who knows? I don't. That's it. Well, boy, let me think about that.
I won't. This deep.
I don't know.
I'm not going to bet against him.
I can't. But I'm with Bob. I mean, player movement. Who else comes in? Where does he go?
Yeah.
I can't bet.
How long can his body stand up to this though? Like, how many more years does he want to play?
Well, that's okay. That's the question. Okay, so that's the question.
Oh, we know how. We have the answer to that.
Well, but I mean,
at least 2.
Yeah, I mean to play with Bronny, but
the thing about it is he's playing. Look, he's the best 38-year-old ever. And I wrote this, and people say, what about Kareem in '85 and all that? Kareem was sporadic in his ending years. He had his moments, but
he wasn't the guy. He wasn't the guy. No, and he had a great series in '85, and he lasted 4 more years and all that. But believe me, in the end, he's averaging 10 points a game, and he's a spot player more or less. And LeBron is still a primary player at 38. He spends literally, when we're told, $1 million a year on body upkeep with trainers and supplements and the whole thing. And it's a wonderful body. And it's not a 38-year-old NBA body. It's a body we've never seen before at age 38 in the NBA. And we've had older players, and a few guys got into their early 40s, Kevin Willis, and but nothing like this.
Yeah, so, I can't bet against him. But the one thing I will say is I hope he doesn't stay too long.
Right.
And he's not there. He's not there by any stretch.
We say that.
I hate to say it. I think an injury will define when LeBron has to step away. I think that'll be it. At some point he does play with such still, force and veracity that, like,
oh yeah.
I think at some point once you get older, listen, I'm a lot older than him. Even when I go out and play softball at the end of it, my knees are hurting. So, like, at some point, it's going to catch up with him.
Oh, he's had the last few years. He's had substantial time missed.
Yes,
sure, it's going. I know.
That'll be it. Can he go 2 more? I hope he goes 3 more and doesn't rush Bronny in and lets Bronny play 2 years at USC. By the way, I ran into Andy Enfield, the head coach at USC, in Las Vegas over the weekend. And we were talking for a while, and I was just joking with him about, his job next year to coach Bronny and what it's going to be like. Enfield's got a Celtics background too, guys. If you didn't know, he came up, he was like a shooting coach for the Celtics years ago. So, he was just saying how he hadn't dealt with Bronny much through the recruiting process, but that the family was just so good to deal with overall in the limited interactions he has with Bronny. And he really, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but he asked Bron, one of the questions was talking to him about, whether he wanted to play with good players at USC, which they got a bunch of good guards, and maybe not play as much, or did he want Bronny to play with lesser players and have a bigger role? And LeBron said right away, no, I want him to play with good players, even if his role, he's not averaging, 15, 18 points a game or something like that. So, again, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds with Bronny.
They're going to be like traveling circus. They're going to be like traveling with the Beatles in 1964.
Well, do you think will LeBron be a pain in the neck though? I mean, he's not going to get in the coach's ear, is he?
I don't know. I think he'll pick his spots. I don't think he'll be in his ear consistently, but I think there'll be a meeting at some point next season. I do think there'll be a meeting where LeBron James comes in and says, hey, listen, my kid's averaging 6 or 7 points a game. Can we do this or this or this and maybe expand his role a little bit? I wouldn't be surprised if there's a meeting in the middle, coming out of December or something like that.
All right, Jeff Goodman, we can't get away today without you telling us your hockey story.
What was my hockey story?
Watching the game,
Oh,
fourth
yeah.
overtime game.
Crazy.
Tell the world about your hockey experience.
I mean, I literally left Logan Airport at the end of the first period. We flew out. We left at the end of the first period, and I was going to Vegas.
Which game are you talking about?
This was the 4 overtime game.
Okay.
Game 1, and I'm watching the game on the flight. I land. I take a car to Circa, which is, by the way, the best place to watch games in Vegas now. It's new. It's downtown. They built it. Derek Stevens, businessman from Michigan, built it a couple of years ago. It's insane. Literally got from Boston all the way to Circa and watched the final goal in the 4th overtime. Like, how crazy is that? Think about that. Like, I'm rushing because I'm a big Carolina Hurricanes fan now because of my daughter. So I'm very interested in this game. And I get there and literally kind of walk in Circa, and 5 minutes later, they lose in the 4th overtime. It was crazy.
It was 2 a.m. Eastern plus
2 a.m. My wife and daughter are yelling and screaming, and then they lose game 2 in overtime as well. Keith Kachuk's kid.
Sorry, that's right, kid. Great job, guys. As always, we'll talk again next week. It's not going to involve. Well, it'll involve Celtic talk, but but not moving on. Somebody's moving on. Somebody's moving on. All right, guys. Good stuff. I'll see you.
CLNS Media's Celtics coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.